Hello, folks. This is Richard Florczak, the private chef to the stars, and welcome to Talking About Food. It's the only local food commentary show on the Grand Strand that talks specifically about restaurants, food trucks, festivals, and farmers markets. We'll talk about my favorites, your favorites, and maybe on occasion, the not-so-favorites. I'll throw in some of my recipes, and hopefully you can teach me some of yours. I'm going to be interviewing local chefs and local food business owners. And please remember, contrary to a restaurant chef, I cooked in a home. Much like most of you listeners, you and I have a lot in common. I've often said the only difference between you, the home cook, and me, the private chef, is I got a paycheck. So always remember this. You are your family's private chef. That's why I'll also be talking about some of the best major appliances as well as the best small kitchen appliances, the best knives, and how to cut corners in the kitchen without cutting quality. And from time to time, I'll be interviewing some of my celebrity friends, and whether celebrity or not, the topic will always be food, because nothing brings people together like great food. I want this show to be a break from the daily grind and the rat race of the week, so forget about your job for an hour, put politics aside, and let's do what I like doing best, talking about food. I've got a great guy on the line. You all know him. His name's Dion. You know his songs. Dream Lover, Runaround Sue, The Wanderer, Teenager in Love. In 1958, he had 3 top 40 singles. In the 1960s, had a mega solo hit called Abraham Martin and John. Fantastic song. And in 1980s, he moved into the Christian music world very, very successfully. As a matter of fact, in the 80s, he was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, where he absolutely belongs. And in the 2000s, moved into the blues world, most recently releasing an album called Blues with Friends that includes Joe Bonamassa, Van Morrison, Bruce Springsteen, Jeff Beck, Paul Simon, and many others. And I am just so lucky to have him on the show today. But more importantly, this guy loves food. And he loves talking about food. Dion, welcome to Talking About Food.
Well, it's a joy to be here, Richard. And for the life of me, I don't know why you want to talk to me about food.
You'll see. There's a number of reasons. You've been in the music business for over 6 decades, probably done 1,000 interviews. Have you ever done an interview strictly about food?
No, I never have.
First,
and needless to say, I love food and friends.
Yeah, well, that's what I kind of knew that about you, so that's why I wanted you on the show. You know, they say a song immediately can take you back to a certain time, right? Doesn't food sometimes do the same thing?
Well, I have a group of guys. We go out. We call ourselves the Bronzino Brothers, and we go to different restaurants, and we have Bronzino and Broccolidab. All 4 of us.
No kidding. And you're in Florida now, so Bronzino, which is a fish, yeah.
And needless to say, it's an expensive check.
Yeah, certainly with Bronzino. But I mean, there must be things like when you were growing up, you come from Italian heritage. Your mother, was she a good cook?
Great cook. Yeah. She didn't know any other way to cook.
Right.
But healthy and, scatol and.
What is that? Tell me what that is.
You don't know what scatol is?
No,
escarole. Sorry.
Oh yeah. Of course.
Escarole.
Yeah. No, that's
escarole. But there's a lot of stuff. Like sometimes, Richard, I'll listen to these nutritionalists. These podcasts. These experts on nutrition and they know a lot. Don't get me wrong. I learn a lot, but they'll never talk about fennel or anise, or
Yeah.
or what they put in salads. What my mother always put in salad. They don't even know what it is.
Right.
They'll, they used to call it finocchio in Italian.
Yeah.
And it's tasty as all out there. Anyway, my mother was funny. She lived to 104.
Wow.
Richard, I kid you not, I'd give her a call because I was going to go see her, and I'd say, Mom, what can I bring you? And she'd say, nothing. You don't have to bring me anything. And then she'd say, wait, and she'll for like a minute she'll think about it. She'll say, get me a bottle of garlic. Bring me a bottle of garlic. I mean, who asks for a bottle of garlic?
Right. Bring a bottle of wine or a dessert, but your mother asked for a bottle of garlic.
Oh, yeah. No, she hated sugar. She didn't eat sugar. She thought looking at some desserts looked like a bad accident to her.
Wow.
I mean, that's the way she was. She was just naturally that way.
What about crazy. You? Are you a dessert guy?
Not really. I've over the years, I've just decided to eat the meal, nothing before the meal and nothing after the meal, just the meal.
Wow.
The protein, the vegetables, the potatoes, whatever you have, whatever they bring on a plate, I'll eat anything.
Yeah. But
I try to stay away from a lot of bread before the meal and desserts after the meal. But I'm not saying I don't have a dessert now and then. I do, but which I love.
If you're going to do a dessert, what's your go-to?
Well, there's nothing like a fresh baked sfogliatelle, or cannoli isn't it for me? Like a sfogliatelle or
what is that? You have to explain it to me because that's an Italian word.
I don't know what it is. That's what it is. You'd have to. It's an Italian. It's Italian pastry. It is delicious, especially when it first comes out of the oven.
Yeah,
it is unbelievable. But I love ice cream.
Yeah,
I love coconut ice cream. I love. What do I? What's that? Well, I love vanilla. Yeah. I just love ice cream.
Yeah, me
That's
too.
another thing.
Me too.
Some people like my wife likes cake and cookies. I don't. I could eat. I could eat ice cream.
You're a lucky guy because I like it all, and my problem is I can't moderate. If I love pie, I love fruit pies, and if I can't have 3 slices, I don't have any. And, I was thinking the other day, sometimes I think God has a sense of humor because I was thinking back to the time I first started making some decent money that I could survive on. I was like in my mid-40s, and I got to the point where I can afford just about whatever I wanted to eat. But at that age, I started being told that I can't have the things that I would like to eat. Now, all of a sudden, I thought lobster once in a while would be nice, and I can afford it. Oh, no, you can't have the cholesterol, you can't have the fat, you can't have the salt, you can't have the sugar. So, anyway, yeah,
they'll drive you crazy with that.
Yeah, I'm an ice cream guy too. Is your wife a good cook?
She is. She doesn't cook too much these days, but she was a good cook because she learned from my mother. And my mother, my mother would make pasta with peas and onions.
Are you kidding?
You know what I'm saying?
No, tell me about that. My mother used to make. Now we were Polish, right? But in our tiny little 1 square mile town, it was split down the middle. You had the Italians on the left and the Polacks on the right. But we all got along. But my mother used to make. It was this simple thing called macaroni and peas. Is that what you're talking about?
No cheese, just peas.
Peas, yeah, macaroni and peas.
But she'd have onions.
Yeah.
Onions, cooked onions would be. Yeah, it was delicious.
Oh my god,
it's just delicious. With oil and garlic. It's like,
man,
it's delicious.
You're killing me here.
Yeah, my mom, like being Italian, there were always olives and prunes and figs and grapes and cucumbers and tomatoes and chestnuts. They used that was the dessert.
Yeah,
Chestnuts we would have chestnuts there. But so I don't know. It didn't harm my family any. My father lived to 94.
Wow.
My mother lived to 104, and all my aunts, they went. Like I have one of her sisters is alive. She's like 100. Her youngest sister. Wow. They all hit high 90s.
Wow.
So they ate like that. They ate back then. Milk was actually milk.
Right.
When I was a kid, if I drank the first glass of milk, was all the cream was on the top.
On the top.
That's the way it was.
Right.
So and we never had white bread in our house. Never. There was never. Or there was never that like Velveeta cheese, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I want to know what goes into that cheese. That's
like say Kraft's grated cheese. That was considered sawdust. That was like that wasn't cheese.
Yeah,
that was not cheese.
I think you got it right. So, that's like sawdust.
My uncles would slap you in the head if they saw that, on the table.
Yeah, well, there must be something to be said about the diet that it seems like your whole family lived by. Had some pretty good effects on age for your family. So there's something to be said about that.
My father was like he was like the original Charles Atlas.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the 50s.
Yeah.
He would make weights out of oil cans, cement and oil cans with a bar and you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Homemade weights, and he would go in the cellar and lift weights, and he'd eat blackstrap molasses and yogurt.
Wow.
And Richard, that's when yogurt was yogurt.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's all they had was yogurt.
Right.
There was only one yogurt, period.
Wow.
So I grew up kind of aware of food. I gotta say, I was aware of it.
Yeah. I was just thinking that there are so many places where I grew up, stores, family-run stores, mom and pops, that they're all gone now. I know you're from the Bronx. Is there anything that's still around that used to be around when you were a kid?
Oh, absolutely.
Really?
Absolutely. Yeah. Artuzo's Bakery. I love I love ices. The cream ice they put. Yeah. And I love. I don't know if that's food.
Yeah. I don't care. It's good.
But when it comes to pies, blueberry pie. Apple pie, pumpkin pie.
Yeah.
All those, pies are unbelievable. My mother used to make, because she didn't buy anything. She used to get chocolate pudding. She would make the chocolate pudding and graham crackers. She would make her own crust.
Yeah.
The chocolate pudding. And then she'd whip up whipped cream.
Yeah.
And it was called, what was it called? It was called like icebox cake.
Yeah.
That's what they call it.
You a seafood guy?
Absolutely. I'll eat anything from the ocean.
Yeah.
But I stopped eating a lot of shellfish because when I was a kid, we would eat mussels and clams. I used to go to City Island.
Yeah.
Raw clams.
Beautiful.
We used to eat all kinds of seafood. It was like there was no drawback anywhere with it. But now I'm not too sure. So when I was a kid, and I never went to a restaurant until I was about 19 years old, and I got a hit record.
Yeah.
And I was in Manhattan, and I went to a restaurant, and I learned about Beaujolais and Bordeaux, and I learned about Roquefort dressing. I never knew what Roquefort dressing was.
Yeah.
I got on a Roquefort dressing kick with salads and prime rib and steaks when I was a kid.
Wow.
You know, and I love shrimp cocktail with the sauce.
Yeah.
And in France, they'll make the sauce right in front of you. You know, and so I was learning, and then I went to a French restaurant. I learned about escargot.
Yeah.
And I would order escargot all the time. Now, I haven't had escargot in years.
Right.
You know, because I own a house in Florida, and we have snails crawling up the wall. I can't eat escargot.
When you make the connection,
you know what I'm saying?
Right? Yeah.
So I don't eat a lot of shellfish, but I really love flounder, and I love bronzino, and I love dolphin, and I love yellowtail and salmon, and I'll eat. I love fish.
Yeah, that's.
I do eat a lot of fish.
That was one of the three things that attracted me about living in Murrells Inlet in South Carolina. It's considered the seafood capital of South Carolina, and I'm quite the fisherman. And the fish most targeted here is flounder, and it's just fantastic. Well,
I love flounder. If it's thin, to me, it's like my favorite fish when it's cooked right. I just love it.
And this particular species that you get in the Carolinas is very mild. It's such a wonderful, wonderful fish. Listen, Dion, I make mention in my intro all the time that no matter who I have on the show, it is strictly talking about food, but you have a book that is near and dear to my heart about recovery, and it's near and dear to my heart, especially the fact that last week I turned 28 years sober. So I would love if you would tell the listeners a bit about your book.
Well, I have a friend, and we would go to meetings, and then we'd go out to eat. And we'd be eating, and I'm telling you, we would eat. We were like connoisseurs, you know, and we'd go to different restaurants. And one day he says to me, I wish everybody was here listening to these conversations we have. I said, why don't we document them? So that was about 5 years ago. So we started documenting these conversations. So there's about 50 essays or vignettes in this book with about 100 pictures and all kinds of, it's called Conversations on Recovery, Life, Music, and Faith. I've been clean and sober 56 years.
God bless you.
So my whole life is centered in that faith, in that recovery. And everything else is it's extra.
Yeah.
To me, it's, you know, it all comes out of that. The roots, that's where the roots are. So, but it's a book we're putting out. It'll be out in December. It's called The Rock and Roll Philosopher. So look for it. Oh, I better yet, just send me your address. I'll shoot you one out.
Oh, that's kind. And anybody out there that is having difficulty or has a family member or a friend, I'm begging you, reach out for this book because it could turn your life around. I mean, we're talking to a man that has 50 plus years of being clean and sober. It works.
Well, Richard, I feel like I found a privileged way to live, and it's kind of a higher reality. So, hey, it's good to have you in my life, and thank you for mentioning the book. And
no, absolutely.
You have a wonderful day.
Another link in the chain, right, my friend?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Dion, thank you so much for taking the time. I so appreciate it, and I know the listeners do as well.
You stay well. Keep rocking.
And how cool is Dion? He's a cool cat. You know, there are people out there that try to act cool. Dion is naturally cool. God, I love that guy. And you know what? First of all, I'm so fortunate to have him on the show. And I thought after that conversation, we have to move into one of my commentaries about one of my favorite Italian restaurants in the Grand Strand. And the first place is Luigi's Trattoria restaurant, obviously Italian place. It is in Myrtle Beach. It's 503 61st Street North in Myrtle Beach. This is a good place. Been there a couple of times now. I was very surprised. I've got a number of foodie friends, self-acclaimed foodies, and every one of them had never been there before. I was very surprised. Anyway, like the place. First thing that jumped out at me, actually, let me back up for a second. Freestanding building, place been there for a long time. Family run, nice place. You can sit outside if you want, or inside in the dining room, or sort of half outside, which is what I call it, which is like this, I don't know, like an alcove that has about 10 tables. We've sat out in that area each time. A little bit more quiet, but nice. Friendly people, attentive staff. But back to what jumped out at me, I love eggplant parm. When I go to a restaurant, an Italian restaurant for the first time, and they have eggplant parmesan on the menu, I get it. Usually disappointed. It's usually okay, you know. This place knocks it out of the park. What I love about it, you don't see this often, is that the eggplant is egg battered and then pan fried. Now, for you folks that aren't familiar with this dish, most of the time it's slices of eggplant that is floured and then dipped into an egg batter and then into breadcrumbs and then deep fried. And what happens very often, that's the sort of easier way to do it, because you can do it ahead of time. You can keep those eggplant patties refrigerated and then just pull them out when someone orders it. This has to be made to order, and it's terrific. It's really, really good. I've had it a number of times. I was there with some family. My wife had her absolute favorite, which is spinach stuffed ravioli, obviously homemade. It was really, really good. They did it in a vodka sauce. My wife was very happy with it. If she's happy, usually I'm happy. Another guest had ossobuco, which is veal shank. And for the listeners that don't know, this is the lower part of the leg that is it's sliced through the bone horizontally, so that you end up with meat around the outside and a little round bone in the inside. And then that is braised in a number of fresh herbs and spices and broth and white wine, you know, for a long time. And if it's done properly, it's fall off the bone, but it isn't mushy. There's a little time frame in there where you can overdo it or underdo it, and they do it very, very well there. My other family member, my brother, had the pasta frutte de mar, and when we were there, it was only a few weeks ago, prime time for shrimp and other seafood here in the Grand Strand, and it was great. He had it with a red sauce, really nice and spicy. I don't mean hot spicy, I mean just filled with beautiful herbs and spices, fresh garlic, oregano. It was really good. And of course, I was very, very happy with my eggplant parm. It may sound simple to some of the listeners, like, what's the big deal about that? It is a big deal. It is a big deal for me anyway. It's one of those kinds of things that very often is a throwaway on the menu, where they just add it on because eggplant isn't one of the most popular vegetables out there. You know, not everybody likes it, and that's fine. But this is on the menu here at Luigi's Trattoria for a reason. They do it well. Excellent wine list. I think I said before, very attentive staff. You just feel good from the time you walk in, and it's reasonable. It is very reasonable. I think I paid around $18 for the eggplant parm, lobster ravioli around 20, maybe. Oh, I'm sorry, I said lobster. I meant spinach ravioli. They do have lobster ravioli. I'll be trying that next time. But it was a wonderful place. Wonderful place. It's one of those kind of places where you can go in with, a group, 2, 4, 6 or whatever, and the noise level isn't to the point where you can't hear the person next to you. It's comfortable enough where you can just hang there, for a couple of hours. It's a good place. I recommend it. And like I said, I'm very surprised that there are a lot of people that, some of the people I've talked to didn't even know it existed. And some of the others just hadn't been there yet. But check it out. Like I said, they're at 503 61st Street North in Myrtle Beach. Now for my pizzeria commentary for this week. Surfside Pizza, 821 Surfside Drive in Surfside Beach. Not bad. I mean, from the outside, I didn't expect much from it. Right next door is Malibu Kitchen, which I haven't been to yet. Have heard fantastic things about it. It's supposed to be old world Italian. They tell you when you go there, plan to stay for a couple hours. I can't wait. But yeah, Surfside Pizza, not bad. New York style. They also have on the menu gourmet style, which I don't necessarily know what that means. I have a feeling that they're trying to go more towards the style of wood-fired, even though it isn't wood-fired. They have, the gourmet margarita, I think, has fresh mozzarella. And it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. I don't know if it's, going to be my favorite, but it is certainly worth a try. It's, 18 or 19 bucks for an 18-inch pizza. I can't say anything bad about it. It was good. It was good. Nice chew to the crust. Nice size. Nice toasty edge to it. Had that ever so slight blistering. But it's, I would go back. But like I said, I was pleasantly surprised at that. Once again, that's Surfside Pizza at 821 Surfside Drive in Surfside Beach. And when we come back, I've got a very interesting guest in the studio with me today. He owns the Inlet Culinary Garden. He's a horticulturist, and the Inlet Culinary Garden specializes in herbs and spices and fruit trees and mushrooms, and they're located dead center of the Grand Strand. I still can't get over having Dion on the show. That was just so cool. I mean, the guy's been around for like 6 decades. He's still around. And I know this is a show strictly about food, but I have to say that album he released 2 years ago, Blues with Friends, is just absolutely phenomenal. And equally phenomenal is a gentleman I have in the studio with me today. And his name is Peter Gerace. He is the owner of the Inlet Culinary Garden in Murrells Inlet, 5071 US 17. This place is unbelievable. I am so embarrassed to say I have been in Murrells Inlet now for 3 years. I've passed this place a million times. And my wife and I went in last week, and we were blown away. And not only do they have, plants, trees, shrubs, all the gardening supplies that a typical nursery might have, but Peter, you won me over with the herbs and the vegetables and the fruit trees. It's just incredible. Tell me, if you can, specifically like about your fresh herbs. Do you do that from seed?
We do. It's sort of half and half. We buy a lot of our plugs from an organic farm in Maryland early in the spring, but we do a lot of propagation and a lot from seed ourselves. Right. Initially, when my business partner and I started it, Chris Reynolds and I, our core product was just herbs, and we quickly found out that we needed to sell more bedding plants and more flowers and things of that nature. So we've expanded to, fruit trees, ornamental shrubs,
right,
and all kinds of other things. But our core product still is a 4-inch pot with herbs like basil, thyme, oregano.
Here's what blew me away. Not only do you have the typical ones, but my favorite herb of all time is oregano. And the specific type of oregano that I like is Greek. And you have
Greek mountain oregano. Awesome.
Unbelievable. And folks, you got to understand, did you say they're 4-inch pots, right?
Right.
These are those typical plastic pots that you would see at Home Depot or whatever, but there's like hundreds of them. And get this, $5 each. I bought Greek oregano, lemon verbena, which I want to ask you about, and dill in these 4-inch pots. They're flourishing already. I mean, even before I bought them, they're $5. You go to Kroger and buy those little packages of herbs, they're $4. I could get, if I didn't plant these, which I'm going to do, if I didn't plant these, I could use these 10 times.
Probably more. I mean, they especially those perennials like the oregano, mint, rosemary, thyme, and the more you cut it, the more they grow.
So will they stay in that 4-inch pot?
I mean, it's best to upgrade it into a larger pot or to plant it actually in a garden.
Right.
But they stay in those 4-inch pots for as long as we have them, and as long as you keep cutting them back, they'll live and fertilize and water.
It's unbelievable. I mean, if you're a foodie, for whatever that term means, I never really figured that out. But if you're quite the home cook or whatever, you got to go to this place, Inlet Culinary Garden. You sell vegetables as well.
Oh yeah, yep.
Do you sell the vegetable or the plant, or both?
We sell the plants.
Yeah.
In the springtime is our big push on vegetables, and we'll have over 80 varieties of tomatoes, probably 50 or so varieties of peppers, along with lots of different cucumbers, squash, eggplants, you name it, just spring gardening. But right now we're gearing up for our fall vegetable season, which is mostly like lettuces, kales, and again, the herbs. We've got a small round of cool season tomatoes that'll last till a frost, mostly cherry tomatoes.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
Yeah, that's cool stuff. Do chefs shop there?
Lots of chefs shop there. Adam Kirby with Bistro 217 and Rustic Table gets a lot of stuff from us.
That's great.
Whenever we have to cut things like basil, thyme, oregano, just to trim the things back in the pots, I usually just bring them to different restaurants and just hand them to people.
Where does that ever happen, folks? Have you ever heard anything like that before? I mean, just for that, you guys got to try this place. It's just phenomenal. You mentioned basil. Another thing that blew me away. I walk in. There's this giant, beautiful basil plant. I can't remember the price, but it was so reasonable. Right next to it, Thai basil.
Yep,
a Thai basil as well.
I don't even know offhand how many different types of basils we have. I mean, there's sweet basil, lettuce leaf basil, Thai basil, African blue.
Yeah.
I mean, the list goes on.
And the lady that works there, I think her name is Sue.
Yep, Sue.
Very knowledgeable, very personable. She's stuck with my wife and I for like 10 or 15 minutes just explaining all kinds of things. But I'd mentioned before lemon verbena, which is near and dear to my heart because back 100 years ago when I was in culinary school, it was one of the first desserts I made. It was a creme brulee. We were taught creme brulee with a lemon verbena leaf on the top, and when it's water baked like you do for a creme brulee, that lemon flavor just permeates the entire dish. It's it's cool.
It could be very strong.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah. Great stuff. Somebody told me, I think it was Sue, that you harvest mushrooms.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Is that something you also sell during that time?
I do that. I'm certified by DHEC and licensed by the state as a forager, so I can. I'm licensed to forage and sell to restaurants.
Wow!
Which I do it. My big mushroom is the chanterelle mushroom.
Oh
And this season was actually kind of poor for us because of the drought. But I've got a few spots where I go still.
I'm going to put you on the spot. Can I go with you one time?
Everybody says that. Everybody wants to go.
I would love to do that if it's ever possible. But do you sell those at the garden center?
No. I usually just go, and by the time I whatever I harvest, by the time I get back to my house, they're already sold.
Well, it says a lot about the quality that you're selling them to restaurants. I know it's out of season, and I want to have you back for this next topic. You raise, I don't know if that's the right term, soft shell crab?
Yeah, I picked that up this spring as a little side thing to do. I was
like you don't have enough on your plate.
Yeah, right. I majored in marine science, biology, and business at Coastal, and I had this metal shed in my yard that was just full of basically garbage, broken tools, and driftwood, and I had to figure out a way how I could make that thing help me, make some income. So we built a table setup, and I've got 4 soft shell crab shedding tables in there. And I went through about 2,000 crabs this past March and April into May, and now I just have mud minnows in there just to keep for personal.
Right. So back to the crab situation. Do you catch the crabs?
No, I purchased. I'm licensed to purchase peeler crabs from different peeler crab dealers. Mm-hmm. And then put them in the tanks, and it's a lot of walking around and waiting.
You've got to pay strict attention to that, right?
Oh yeah, especially when you have about 600 crabs.
Wow!
There, yeah.
So once they shed the shell, how long do you have to extract the crab so that they don't start growing another shell?
Well, the shell's soft, so you have about anywhere from 2 to 4 hours. I mean, so you will kind of want them to plump back up. So you don't want to take them out as soon as they shed.
Wow.
But after you give them about an hour to just sort of plump back up.
Yeah.
And you put them in little seclusion chambers. And then you put them in boxes and with wet paper towels and off to the restaurants they go.
Wow. That is just fascinating. I heard from my fishing boat captain friends that you are quite the flounder fisherman. Have you ever caught flounder here and then used some of your herbs and vegetables to
all the time
prepare?
All the time.
Can you think of a flounder recipe off the top of your head that you would do?
Nothing really beats herb encrusted fried flounder.
Oh man!
Or just fried flounder with breadcrumbs and just a variety of different herbs mixed in it.
Yeah.
Sweet marjoram, basil.
Oh, you're killing
parsley.
Me. You're killing me. Jesus.
You really can't. You can't mess it up.
Yeah.
And then one of my favorite things to do is with redfish. Just grill it, redfish with the skin and the scales on it,
mm-hmm.
and then just put a little bit of blackening seasoning on it and a variety of herbs and some lemon, and just cook it on the grill.
Yeah.
And then with the skin on it, then you get all the fat and all those good omega 3s.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, that sounds so good. So good. Well, folks, as you can see, Peter Gerace is an expert at what he does. Like I said before, all plants, trees, shrubs, and gardening supplies you can get there, but he won me over with the herbs, vegetables, and fruit trees.
This area, especially Murrells Inlet, is a perfect little microclimate for citrus trees. We have blood oranges, limes, key limes, several varieties of Satsuma mandarin orange, improved Meyer lemon, Lisbon lemon, grapefruit, lots of different citrus trees.
I wanted to bring that up. I'm glad you did because I forgot. Because one of the things that struck me when I walked into the Inlet Culinary Garden, was that you had these citrus trees, and I didn't know that they can be grown here. They
do great. In fact, my Satsuma is probably about 25 years old, and unfortunately, it just broke in that last hurricane because it's so loaded up with fruit, it got top heavy, and it snapped. But it's still attached, so I'm not going to mess with it.
Yeah.
But it's leaning over, but it probably has, 500 oranges on it.
Wow.
And then my lemon tree is doing great right next to it. But the most sensitive are the limes. They may have to come in the wintertime, but when they're first planted, like lemons specifically, after they're established, they can handle some cold temperatures. But if you just want to be preemptive, you could put like just the old-fashioned Christmas tree lights on them in the wintertime and just plug them in. Mm-hmm. And that usually generates just enough heat. They may lose some leaves and look a little weird, but they come back. And it's there's nothing more gratifying than going out in your yard and picking a lemon or some oranges.
Yeah. Wow. What a great tip too. See, I told you, he's an expert. He's the best at what he does.
I have another business called Dig, Design, Install, Grow. And basically we build gardens for people.
Wow.
A lot of them are themed, whether they be hummingbird and butterfly or pollinator gardens, or just ornamental. But usually, almost all the time, we have we try to put a lot of plants in there that are beneficial to the environment and draw in different pollinators and butterflies. So you have a lot of action other than just the color of the flowers. You've got a lot of butterflies and hummingbirds. And
have you had people hire you to strictly create a vegetable or herb garden?
Absolutely. Yeah. All the time.
Yeah. And I would dig that. Well, Peter, thank you so much for coming in and joining us on Talking About Food. Once again, it's Inlet Culinary Garden at 5071 US 17. If you're at all into cooking, don't miss this place. And the thing that I look for all the time when I'm going there is there's that giant Cracker Barrel billboard right above Inlet Culinary Garden.
It's just north of Acres Golf.
Just north of Acres Golf. There's a lot of people that know where that is.
Like between Acres Golf and Lee's Farmers Market.
Well, Peter, thanks so much for joining us here. I really appreciate it. Next week coming up, folks, you're not going to want to miss this one. My friend and boss for 13 years, Mel Gibson. He loves food and he loves talking about food. So don't miss that one. If there are places out there, if there are restaurants, food trucks, festivals, farmers markets that you want me to check out, that's what we do here at Talking About Food. Or if you just want to tell me about some places that you think that I should check out and review or whatever, you can reach me at theprivatecheftothestars@gmail.com. And if you want a cooking class or cooking demonstration in the privacy of your own home, you can reach me at theprivatecheftothestars.com. So that wraps up this show for the week, folks. And always remember, you are your family's private chef.